we go. And then they kind of flatten out. Maybe this guy, there's that little valley we were talking about. Maybe he popped out over here. Just like that. Maybe you skip a little bit, right? Hi, welcome back to Paint with Josh. Today we did a gorgeous 16 by 20 inch sunset with beautiful blue mountains, snowy little meadow, and just one single little Christmas tree waiting to be cut down and taken back to your house, right? You obviously like this painting. You want to learn how to paint it. That's why you clicked on the link. So check the description down below. Make sure you get all the colors you need. Make sure you get your canvas nice and wet. Get ready to throw some paint on. We're going to do it just like this. Hey guys, welcome back. I'm glad you decided to join us. So I'm going to go through all the colors that we have today. Not sure if we're going to use them all, but we'll go through them just in case. Cad yellow, bright red, dark sienna, Van Dyke brown, yellow ochre, phthalo green, phthalo blue, alizarin crimson, midnight black, and titanium white. It looks like I need to get just a little bit more midnight black out, so give me 1 second. Okay, now before we started, we took black Liquitex, the black gesso, and covered this just about, I don't know, maybe 5 inches of the bottom of our 16 by 20 inch canvas in the black gesso and let that dry completely, right? We don't want that to be wet at all. And then we took our Bob Ross liquid white, and we put just a little bit on the canvas, just on the white section. And now we're gonna use our Bob Ross liquid clear along the bottom. And that's gonna help all of our oils kind of blend together. And then we're gonna get started painting. So I understand if you already know how to do this part, then you can just scroll right ahead. But before you do that, make sure you like it and send it to somebody. Send it to your grandma, send it to someone just before you scroll. All right, now we took just the littlest bit. Now I want to spread it out, right? Really stretch it out to the limit, right? You don't want it to be very thick in a certain area. You want it to be thin everywhere. If it's thick in a certain spot or too thick all over the place, it's really not going to work out well for us. So we don't want that to happen. And just like that, boom, we're ready to go, right? Let's wash these brushes off, and then we're going to get our colors out and get ready to go. So I'm going to see you in 2 seconds. Okay, more than 2 seconds for me, just like for you, right? Just like told you we'd be right back. Now we've got our liquid white, we've got our liquid clear, everything's nice and wet and ready to go, and we're gonna get to our color. I've already showed you all the colors that you need for today, and just to make a gorgeous kind of sunset sky, we're gonna switch to a different. You have to use the Paint with Josh patented cup technique, right? This is a very, very, very expensive piece of equipment. So all we need is a little bit of color on the end of our brush and an old solo cup. Make sure you have one of those. Now remember, we're gonna come in, I wanna have a nice, gorgeous, bright, warm winter sunset, right? Just like Bob Ross used to do. It was fantastic, okay? So we're gonna come into the red and the yellow, much more yellow than red. See how I'm kind of spreading away from the red so I don't keep dragging too much of it in there. And then we have a good fair amount of it onto our brush. I'm gonna set the old palette down because we need both hands for this trick, right? Look at that, nice filled brush, full of color. We're gonna come up, maybe decide, maybe our sun was just setting over the top of the mountains, just right there. We're gonna take our brush around the edge. Doesn't really have to be a circle, right? And all of a sudden, Teletubbies, bam, we got a cool circle, right? Very cool. Very, very cool. Now with this circle, we're gonna wanna pull inwards, just like a clock from every direction, going in, going in, going in, going in, going in. Right? And we want to leave this nice bright white center, because then when we blend everything out, we're going to have this super bright white area that we can drop like a little sun right into. It's fantastic. Cool little technique. Right? We need to get a little bit more color, and we're going to change colors. We don't want to go with the same color all the time, so why don't we go a little bit of the darker yellow, that yellow ochre, into our bright red. It's fantastic. I want you guys to know we're going to go live tomorrow on TikTok on Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and whatever other time zone you're in, you should be able to figure it out from those 2 times. But we're going to be back here live. We're going to be painting a black canvas. We're going to be doing a gorgeous winter scene. It's going to be fantastic. Look, just let this stuff grow wherever it wants. I'm not even picking the brush up, right? We're just rotating back and forth, just back and forth. And then we're going to go blend it out. It's not going to look like this forever, right? So don't leave it like that and then go, oh, I hate my sky. It didn't turn out like Josh's, and I don't know why, and I don't like it. We're gonna blend it out. It's gonna change. Trust me on that. It's gonna change, okay? Now, we're gonna go back in, and anything that you don't like in a painting, we can always go back in and fix, right? So we'll go back in, we're gonna grab our crimson, which is our darkest red color that we have. I'm not gonna really mix it with anything, and let's come out here. I love this gorgeous progression. Look, we have not washed the brush yet, right? Have not washed the brush. Went from bright yellow to a little bit darker to a little bit darker, and then guess what? We'll go a little bit darker. All right, drop some of that color on. If you really want to have some deep dark, bits to your sky, some deep dark areas, add a little bit more paint, because then when we blend it out, it's going to be a little bit darker. Right? The best part about this liquid white oil paint is that it blends with all of these colors, right? Starts to take them from their very deepest, darkest color and blend them to a lighter color, all on its own. It's the most fantastic stuff. Literally fantastic. The lazy man's way, right? Bob had it right. Work smarter, not harder. Why would I go to art school and want to paint traditionally, right? Because Bob Ross style painting is looked down upon for whatever reason. And guess what? It's because it's easier than doing it the old-fashioned way, right? Which is why most people like to do it. And what is wrong about working smarter and not harder? I don't understand. There we go. Look at that. Oh, it's fantastic. Look at all that color. See how the blue kind of starts to blend lighter and lighter and lighter as it goes in? Right? We don't even need to come down here, but we can. Look at that. We can change this whole thing. We can do whatever we want to do on this canvas, right? We can literally move worlds. We can build mountains. We can change. We can devastate forests. We can have flourishing forests. We can have whatever we want to do on this canvas, and it's fantastic, right? All right, now we're going to take our 2-inch brush, right? I love doing this on the TikTok videos because if I can get it just right, then it'll sit there and boomerang. Obviously, I can't get it right now, but it sits there and boomerangs. It's fantastic. Okay, we're going to go into our lightest area, and since my brush is just about the same size as our light area, it's going to be very quick to blend that spot out, right? We don't need to touch it too much. And we're going to come back, start to grab some of the yellow, drag it in, drag some of the white out, drag the yellow in. In any case, we're going to be covering our white area, but it's going to remain the brightest spot. Okay, now we're going to come down here, going to pull it on down. All this orange wants to come and cover over all that area, so don't let it. Very light pressure, right? Light pressure in here. And it makes it gorgeous. Look at this. Fantastic. Look, we go straight over that light bit. It will still stay so bright. All these colors, they're just going to blend and blend and blend until we really can't even tell where one color started and where another one began. Like, where did the orange stop and then turn into crimson? You can't really tell. It's really fantastic. And a lot of times you can get a lot of that when you have this darker crimson on your brush. Make sure it's not any blue in there. You get the darker crimson, you can come back and maybe just pop in just a far off little cloud out in the sky. Just a couple little dabs. That's all you need. That's so far away you don't even need to have any detail. Now watch, we're going to come back up here into our blue. And as we go back and forth, this is all I'm doing, just fast motion, right? Like, you can start to create all these different things. Where does this blue want to live? Maybe it wants to go a little bit further this way and mix in with that crimson. Maybe that crimson wants to come this way and mix in, right? That's the best part about the oils. You won't be able to tell, you shouldn't be able to anyway, where there's a hard line, right? I don't like my sky like this. Anytime I see tutorials like that or paintings like that, I'm like, oh, if you would have just taken just a little bit longer blending the sky, right? What do you have to do? You're not going anywhere. I have to paint quickly in order to keep you entertained, right? Otherwise you're gonna be like, oh, this guy takes forever. He's so boring. I'm not gonna watch him. And I don't want that. I want the entire world watching me. So I have to do it quickly, right? But you guys can take time, blend your sky, blend it out over and over and over, and it starts to very softly change. It's fantastic. All right, so you got a little bit too much color all over. You can wash your brush. Just make sure it's very dry when you go back to blend some more. And maybe this area right here where it's kind of yellow and it's kind of abrupt. Maybe we'll start to blend this area out just a little bit. And we can get rid of that cloud and we can put it back in. You can do whatever you want to do. Trying not to touch our initial bright whitest area back there, right? Even though it's kind of covered in yellow paint now, it initially was white and gorgeous. Gorgeous. So we're going to wash these brushes off. Let's wash these brushes. Into the beater bucket, into the trash can, then into the beater bucket. I like to shake off that excess into a can, and that way there's not so much liquid on here that it sprays all inside the bucket. Gotta shake off the excess. And then again, I always dab them dry on a paper towel. I've always done it that way. I never like it to be sopping wet, but you don't want your brush to be, super sloppy when you're going back there. It's got to have a little bit of that dampness to it. that little bit of the mineral spirits in there, this little bit of sheen on the glove, right? That helps the colors blend and move and do all that stuff. All that fantastic stuff. But you definitely don't want to have, you know, dripping, soppy bristles when you go up to touch your sky. It's really not going to be good for you. We're going to come in with our gigantic Bob Ross palette and maybe an old fan brush and start to make some faraway clouds back there. Remember, we took look, we can literally do this. Get some of the color from up here on our brush, this pink color, or this color down here, whatever you mixed it out. Just the smallest little amount of color on the brush though, right? Because all we're really doing, actually, let's put our sun back in here. That's what we almost forgot. One more cool little trick for you. We're going to take a filbert brush, nice and dry. We're going to come in here, just into the smallest bit of white. Don't need a whole lot because it's really going to want to grow. It really wants to grow. Go back into your lightest point and then come in with our brush, just like this, right? Get the paint on the brush, right into the lightest point, push, and then rotate the bristles. Actually, we're going the wrong way, Josh. I normally go this way. There we go. And then they kind of flatten out. And the more you push and let them kind of extend, the bigger your little sun is going to be. And that turned out fantastic. Look at that. Gorgeous little trick. Remember, guys, share this feed, and we're going live again tomorrow. Tomorrow morning. I would love to see where some people are watching from. Don't know the temp, but the toes are cold. I see it. I feel you. My toes were freezing in the garage. Okay. Now, remember, we came with our fan brush. We came down, got some of this purpley color, this crimson-y, pinky color, just on the end of the brush, just like that. And we're going to come up here and maybe pop that little thing right across the sun. Just that little difference in color, right? You can see the little shadow underneath, right? Say we need to get a little bit more paint. I don't want to go back to the palette. It's already right here. Get some of that on the brush, come back, make it a little bit darker. Maybe this cloud came up this way. Who knows? Far away little thing, right? So small amount of detail because we're not looking at that little cloud way back there. It's really no big deal. And if you really wanted to give him some love, you could take just a little bit of white just on the corner of the brush, just like this, pulling it down from one side, then we flip the brush over, pull it down from the other side, just so it's on one side. Gorgeous little thing, look at that. And we're gonna come maybe up here, just dump some of that lighter color just on top of the shadowy bit, right? You can go and touch your sun, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And we're gonna take our 1-inch brush and just go so softly, right? I'm barely touching it. So soft. We're gonna come back in here and just drag that down over the top of those that little shadowy color, right? And all of a sudden you got this very cool, soft little cloud out there. And the more the more little circles you make and the more you mix it, don't touch your sun, right? Oh, I touched it. Did anyone see? No. Like you can go right across that thing. It's not very big and thick and it doesn't spread as much as it does on a black canvas, that's for sure. Okay, we can come in and get a little crimson onto our brush. Make that color a little bit darker, right? I don't need a whole lot because the crimson is so strong. Maybe underneath, just was a little darker in there. Had a couple little more shadows. A few little things, maybe it came out this way. All depends on what you want it to look like, right? Go back in, take your brush again. Very light pressure, right? If it starts to move too much, you're pushing too hard. Take your hand away. Very small little things. You don't even have to make your circles sometimes. You can literally take it and pull it off sideways and have this flat-bottomed little bit of cloud out there. Maybe this guy, you can literally take him and blend him into the sky to where you don't even see it anymore. It's so easy to make these little things happen, right? And I never like it to show too much of the shadow underneath. So we come back with the smallest little bit of white. And just like waves, those clouds are kind of twisting and rolling in the sky, right? So they don't have to be a straight line. It's never a perfectly straight thing. And clouds are not a perfectly, any sort of shape, really. There's no designated shape for a cloud. There really isn't. All right, maybe we had a few more. A lot of times, if you do have that hard line around where your colors are or were blended, you can go back and throw a big monster cloud right in between both of those, and it'll save you a whole lot of headache. Little bit of black, a lot more crimson on the brush than black, but look, not a whole lot, right? Dark side, light side. Which are we gonna use today? Maybe this guy was just outside into here, over here. And this whole thing, and we're up here. Anywhere you want it to be, right? anywhere along the edge of that, where that line was, where our little disconnect was. Maybe it started to come this way. Start to mush in. Get this whole thing happening. You guys are like, oh my God, it just ruined it. What did you do? Oh no. All right, we're gonna come back very lightly, just start to mix, trying to push it upwards though. Keep it away, right? We're going this way, away from the light. I don't want it to grow down into the light. So we're dragging it up, coming down, deciding where we want them to end, really, right? It's all up to you. How far do you want it to grow? How much do you want to push? What are you trying to do? All right, we're gonna come back in here. Get a little bit more on each side, each corner, so you can use both corners equally and not have too much paint on your brush, right? And come back. Maybe the underside of this guy is lit up because the sun is down here, right? So you'd have to have a few little light areas in between our dark areas where it's gonna be hit by the sun. Come back, get a little bit more of the white. Both sides again. Maybe come around, maybe those guys connected. Just like that they did. All of a sudden, that's one whole big cloud. Start to dump our white on now. And leave area for your white to grow, right? It's gotta come out, it's gotta be shown in different places. But remember, that white wants to extend. So you have to leave room for it to grow in there. Okay, if you put too much white all over it, you're gonna lose all the shadows, you're gonna lose all of our differences, you're gonna lose everything. Again, taking it, pulling it up. Coming away from the light. Every so often, you can give it a little bit pull down, just to make it soft. Just so softly, right? Mixing it, deciding on pressure. Look, I'm here, and then I pull it way over here to kind of bring some of that color out. And then we come back. Maybe it's too thick in a certain spot. Right? If it's too thick in a certain area, you don't want it to grow too far, pull your hand away. Don't just sit there and let it move across your whole scene, right? Remember what we do? We cover up a lot of those deep, dark shadows, and that way it looks more filled with depth, more realistic. Everything, look at that. Just the littlest bits. This giant thing, almost looks like a face, I don't know. I always see, the fans always see stuff in the paintings, and they're like, oh, did you mean to paint this? And I go, yes, of course I meant to paint that. I am an artiste, and of course I meant to paint, you know, a face in the mountain. No, I didn't. It just literally happened, guys. It literally happened. Okay, we're gonna get a little bit more black, a little bit more crimson, and I don't wanna go maybe one swipe of blue, that's it. Too much blue out here into our yellow, it's gonna go green, as we all know, right? So maybe over here we had this giant bit of darker purpley color, and we're gonna lose a whole lot of it based on the size of our mountain, but maybe in some spots, this thing will shine through. Maybe we had a little bit darker back there. If you want to add a little bit more depth and more deep dark color, put it in there, mix it out until you don't have your little brush lines anymore. Now all of a sudden the cloud has changed, right? Everything changes with the smallest little amount of color, right? Boom, just like that. Drop in just enough to where we add that little bit of shadowy mystery back there. What's happening? This whole side of the cloud can't be hit, only the edge. Then the back is in the shadow, right? All this stuff back here. Shadowy clouds. And again, it's going from its brightest white leading down to the darkness, and then bam, we hit it with something else. And we're gonna come in here, again, pushing, not trying to cover all of these oranges in between these two clouds, but that's very cool. Having that little bit of sky back there. Maybe this guy went all the way over here. You can take him as far as you want to take him. Again, we're gonna put a big old mountain right here in the center. So let's see. All by pushing, pulling, spinning, pressure. The 3 P's of clouds, patented by the US Patent Office, okay? The amount of paint on your brush, the amount of pressure on your canvas, and practice, of course, and you'll have perfect clouds. I'm telling you, share it with your grandma, send it to your mom, say this guy knows how to paint clouds. I mean, he knows how to paint everything, but really knows how to paint clouds and waves. Ain't nobody touched me on waves, let me just say. Okay, we're gonna come back in here, a little bit of white, while I toot my own horn, not taking the brush off of the canvas, right? Letting it roll on top, not trying to cover all of that darkness either. Maybe our little clouds rolled over this one. Oh no, look at that. Big old giant bit. What are we gonna do now, Josh? Oh no. There's a giant bit of darkness up into our sky. Check this out. Pushing just until I feel like it's blended enough, right? Yours doesn't have to look like this. You probably didn't make that mistake because you're so good that you wouldn't make that mistake over there. But I did. So I gotta show you how to fix it, right? Come back with a little bit of white, Smallest amount of pressure. Happy little accidents turn into fantastic little things. Okay, quote Paint with Josh on that. Happy little accidents turn into wonderful things. Okay, you know what the guy who very first found King Tut's tomb said when he looked inside? He said, "I see wonderful things." And that's what I see when I look at your potential, guys. Wonderful things can be had with the smallest amount of will, a little bit of knowledge on what to do and just how to make it messy, right? That you get from old Papa Paint with Josh. Bam, 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 bam. Fantastic. Those ones are much lighter. Doesn't even matter, right? You don't need to put them in there. No one says there has to be clouds in the entire sky. Look, I put way too much paint right here. So I'm going to scrape some of it up, drop it over here, spread it back before I start to spread it, right? Once you start to spread it, ladies, it can go too far. And all that color will want to start to grow over. So, depends on the pressure, depends on the amount of paint on your brush, right? Paint, pressure, practice. And you'll have perfect clouds in no time. Look at that, that's fantastic. Little thing up here. It's just too much of a hard line between the white and the pink for my eyes. So we come back, we blend it away. Any areas that are too bright and you don't think that the sun would reach all the way to there, you just go back and blend it. Nice and soft and easy, just like that, right? We didn't wash this brush one time throughout the whole sky's process. Now we gotta really get the color out. And I mean, we're about to do a dark thing, so you don't even really need to wash the brush yet. I'm such a lazy painter that we don't have to wash the brush all the time. That takes a lot of time away from me being on the screen, right? Say an executive from Netflix pops in and my brush isn't up here doing any work. Guess what? Guess who's not getting a Netflix show? So we tend to cut a lot of the brush washing out of the tutorials because you guys know how to wash the brushes already. Come on, let's be serious. If you're painting, then you know how to beat the devil out of it. And if you don't, go over to my TikTok because I've got tons and tons. Well, maybe 3. But I've got a playlist of TikTok videos where we literally just beat the devil out of it. And I show you how to clean the brushes, right? So we're going to come in. We're going to take our palette knife. It's nice, clean, hasn't been used one single time yet. This paint, there's barely anything here, right? We're pulling it out as flat as we can go. Smallest little, I didn't even get any. That's how little I want, right? The smallest little bit. And maybe out of these clouds, popped a little chemtrail just right out there. Smallest little bit of paint though. You don't need a whole lot because it's gonna wanna grow, right? Very soft little pressure. And then I like to mix up right where it came out of the clouds and just kind of blend that in like it looks like it came from behind. It's very cool, right? You can do more than one, but you just wanna make sure your angles are right, right? I always tend, sometimes I'll go outside and I'll see multiple. You might see 6 or 7 chemtrails across the sky. Or contrails, right? Not trying to cause any conspiracy theories over here. But sometimes I go out and I see 2. Other times I see more. You know, usually you only see 1. So I like to paint 1. And it represents my wife's mother who we lost in every single painting that it goes in. That's the meaning of it. So we like to do it very often around here. So let's grab our big palette knife. We're gonna come in here, get our black, get our crimson, get our blue. Right? About equal amounts. Look at those globs of paint. You can even see them, but they're different colors. I hope you can anyway. I don't know if you can. Then we're going to sit here. We're going to mix them up. Mix them up, mix them up, mix them up, mix them up, mix them up. Mix them up. Your arm starts to get tired and you just flex. Ah! There we go. All right. Mix up the paint. Get rid of all this junk off the knife. So it's nice and clean. There's nothing else that can kind of ruin our day by becoming accidental. And then let's come in here, scraping up a fair amount just because I want to be able to do it quickly. And we'll come in and just like this, big giant amount on the knife. And we're going to go whoop, ba-bam. Just as much as you want, as little as you want. Let it grow, let it come down, do whatever. Doesn't have to be straight, doesn't have to look good. Doesn't have to be pointy. It doesn't have to be perfect, right? That's the best part about it is they're not a perfect thing. Maybe this guy had a little point right there. Who knows? Who knows? And we'll come back in. We don't need much more because again, all this paint's going to want to grow, right? So maybe we'll put another Just a little bit of color any which way we can. And that's all you do to paint a mountain. That's it, guys. All right, tutorial's over. Take care. Have a good day. I'm just messing with you. Now look, as we come in with our brush and start to pull this guy, we can pull it at different angles. I'm almost going straight horizontal over here, right? And then again, like a clock. Everything is like a clock. Come down. That's how a clock makes things look 3D. If I pulled all of these in one direction, they would just look like a cliff, right? If we pulled them all on one side, it would look like a beginner's painting, because that's what I did when I very first started. I would pull all the mountains down to one side, all the snow would be over here, I'd have no shadows, I had no depth, I had no anything. And, you know, I thought I was rocking. I was like, look at me, guys. And then I started looking, just like every so often you get something just click, and you start painting better, and then you look back at old paintings, you're like, ooh, I don't know what was I thinking back here? Maybe this guy went over here. Look, the more we pull, the further it's gonna wanna stretch. Stretch, 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 but pulling in different directions like a clock, making it more 3D, right? And now look at all these little things just that our brush left, all these little marks, all these little dark areas and light areas. It's telling us where we can highlight the mountain and where it's gonna look the best, right? Super easily, it's already there. I know that the sun is gonna hit in certain places and certain places are gonna be in the shadow. It's already telling me maybe this deep, darkest area right here is a big ravine that's not hit by the light, so maybe we keep that spot dark, you know what I mean? All depends on what yours looks like. And if you can match mine 100% perfectly to every stroke, then, I mean, you're well beyond the need for me, right? Because I can't even paint mine the same every time. So I'm gonna come back, we need to make a little bit of shadowy color. Our little blue snow shadowy color. Remember guys, anyone just tuning in live on TikTok right now, let me just stop in the middle of the tutorial. Right, anyone tuning in live on TikTok, we have a live show tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern time. So come back tomorrow. All right, we're gonna mix up this blue. Remember, I'm also simultaneously filming a tutorial as I'm talking to you guys. So I have to quit talking to you and remember where I stopped in the tutorial so it doesn't click and jump forward, right? So we've mixed up our shadowy blue colors. Now we're gonna take a fair amount of white paint, because this is a big old mountain and it's winter time, right? We're gonna mix up just a little scrape of that blue into this white. And the more and more we mix it, the lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter blue it becomes, right? Scraping it up, trying not to get it too blue. I don't want them to be the same, but I don't want this one to be pure white, right? It's going to look pure white when we put it back there, but I don't want it to be pure white, because then we can work our way forward in values and end up with white in our foreground, right? It's gonna be fantastic. All right, so we're gonna take our shadowy colors first, just because I like doing them first. You can always cover over them. If you do your highlights first, then you have to go back in and sneak in little bits of shadow, and it's a pain in the butt, right? Maybe this guy, and remember, all depends on our angles of the knife, right? There's a deep ravine back in here that light just can't get to. It's gonna hit out on the peak, so maybe on the back side of this guy, there's like a little valley down in here, who knows? Sure looks like it to me now, right? Just with that little bit of light blue color. That's all it is. And then when we hit it with the white, you guys are gonna lose your minds. Right? Maybe there's a little bit, I don't know, over here. We can cover it if we don't like it. We'll figure it out, right? Maybe just a smidge down in between that little ridge back there. Now we've saved the majority of it for the back side of this peak. Bam, it's all gonna be covered in blue. Now look, I had too much pressure on that run, right? So we're gonna come back in very lightly. See how it breaks like that and you don't hear the knife on the canvas? When you do hear the knife, that means you're out of paint. Go back, get some more. Very soft little thing, soft. Oh, it's so soft, guys, oh no. Right, come in, maybe there was a little bit down here, who knows? Whatever we cover over is what's not gonna be seen, imagine that, right? If you don't like how it looks, we cover it. A little bit more of that light blue. Maybe the ridge came all the way down here, that little valley that was back in there, right? All right, now we're gonna take our kind of lightish blue, super bright blue, right? Almost white. Not pure white, but almost white. We're gonna scrape that up. Same thing on the knife, getting enough. And we're gonna come up here, right, just like that. Come up like that. Right into the thing, so lightly touching it, following our angles down, right? Boom. Just like that. It starts to come to life. Oh, it's gorgeous. Oh my, look at that. Dragging it down, letting it mix in with those little areas. Some areas are gonna be light, right? Like the peak of this mountain might have been a little bit light, but you gotta leave room for that dark to kind of shine through as well, right? And the more and more you go over it in a certain area, like say you've gone over your shadows, the more you go back over it, the darker they'll become. So you can kind of blend that pure white or our snowy highlights back into shadow, come back in, put a little bit of brightness on it. Very simply done, right? Come over here. Maybe this guy. There's that little valley we were talking about. Coming in, meeting up with our other guy, just like that, right? The difference, the slight difference between how bright this very light blue is compared to that very light blue is what's going to cast that shadow in our mind, right? Very cool. Coming down like that. Cool little thing. Let's see. Maybe this guy. He's like a whole little ridge back there. And all of a sudden, that little shadowy valley makes sense. Why is it so cold back there? Oh, the sun never reaches it. That's why. Woo! Fantastic. Pull it down very softly. Let it break. You don't need a whole lot of details. The mountains are not the focal point of this painting, right? Just like that, too. There's nothing even over there. And the reason we put a little bit of white here is so when we come in and swipe at it very softly, you get these very soft little details, right? To give you the impression that there's something happening back there. Now, very softly from the bottom, we're going to come up in the opposite direction. So if we came down like this with our knife, we need to come up like this with the brush, right? You go up as high as you want, but just touch it so softly. So softly, okay? I'm telling you. Let's come over here, very gently pulling it down, and it just gives it this kind of almost foggy, out of focus look. Like there's just something about it. When you take a photo of our foreground, it's nice and in focus, and then the background's a little bit foggy. That's kind of what this brush does for us. And we're gonna come up into that, kind of grabbing a little bit with the very tip of the bristles way up here, dragging it down, right? Dragging a little bit down. All you gotta do, tiny little bits. They're all flowing down this way until, boom, we started going this way with our knife, right? So all of our little tappy taps gotta come down this way. Doesn't even matter if you go above the mountain. Watch this. Start to mix it up in little circles. Now it's a little bit of fog. We don't know where the mountain is. We don't know if it drops straight off down there or not. Could. Probably doesn't, but it could. Right? Little circles at the base. That's all we need. Bam. Soft little things. Soft, soft, soft. Softly done. Come back with just a little bit of blue color for my brain. Right, just so when we come back in and pull that little bit of blue down, you can even take some of these areas where we hit the top, pull them up like this, you get very far away little trees. Just a couple little swipes though, nothing too crazy. Don't go nuts. A lot of these won't even be in the painting. We're gonna have a whole big tree right up in here anyway. Maybe right there. All right, now we need a whole nother bit of mountain at the bottom because that's just not enough mountains for me. We never come down far enough, and that just wasn't enough for me. So let's come in, get a little bit more of that dark color. And who knows, since we're gonna have our tree over here, we gotta decide, we don't wanna block too many areas. But maybe down in there, we had a whole nother little mountain start to grow. And you can see where I'm putting it, right? I try to show you guys why we put it in this area, because you have that little bit of mist, right? It makes it look further away. Maybe this guy, we want to change his shape. We go up, we add a little bit more. Come over here. Right, that guy, we'll just let him go off in the distance. He can be nice and flat, no big deal. All right, you're like, this doesn't look like a mountain. Well, I don't want the mountain to grow too far, so I'm gonna scrape up all of this paint. Look at all that, look at all the stuff that came back off. It's at least enough to make another mountain, like literally enough to make a whole nother thing, right? So don't want all that paint on there because it's gonna wanna grow. You wanna leave the top nice and dark so that stays dark against that lighter color back there. But everything else underneath, it does not matter. Now, I'm gonna wipe off that old knife, get rid of all that paint, and take our 1-inch brush. It's It's got all the color on it from pulling out our previous mountain back there. So we're gonna take this guy, grab and drag, right? Maybe he's a little bit straighter off. Got a whole little side of a ridge back there. Maybe this guy came down very lightly. This one, maybe there was a little bit of a ridge in between there we can work on. Take him down here. All right, this whole little side's coming down this way. Very cool. All depends on the amount of paint on the brush, which way we're pulling the knife, what we're doing, right? Fun little things. You take this guy and pull him down in front of the other guys like that. All of a sudden create a new little bit of a mountain range that's sat in front of these older ones. Pull it off to the side, a little bit of pressure, right? Otherwise it's really gonna wanna grow. Bam, just like that. Got a whole nother little ridge sitting down in front of these guys so easily. So soft, so gentle. Okay, we're gonna come back in, make up a little bit more of that white paint, a little bit of the blue paint to make our shadowy color. That same, if we can achieve just a little bit darker pigment than that last one. There we go. I like the shadows in the front mountain to be just a little darker than the ones back here. So whatever color this is, needs to be just a touch darker than the other one, right? It's a little bit closer, it's further away from the sun, the light's having a stronger time trying to reach, so it's gotta be a little bit darker. And then we'll mix our whites when we go do that. Now a little bit of that blue, maybe this whole side again, very light pressure. Most of it kind of hidden back in that little bit of snow. Small, small, small things, right? Some of these things may end up getting covered. Some of them might not. So you never know what's gonna stay, what's gonna survive through the painting and remain at the end, right? Let's see. And we got a little bit of shadow off the side of those peaks. And who knows, maybe there's not. Maybe it came down like this. Oh yeah, if we can get it down close and then we'll come back and cut through with some white like that, really cut those two mountains apart. Maybe this guy, just a little bit back in here, right? Then we can go back and cover over it and do different things. Very cool. Where is the light hitting in your mind? You know what I mean? It can't be white on white. It can't just be all of the same color. It never goes well like that. It just doesn't work. You lose track of what you're doing. It's ridiculous. Okay, we're gonna come back in here, mix up that white with, our white and blue that we had done. Super bright white, you know what I mean? Or super bright blue, nearly white. Now it's even brighter. We're gonna come up here, maybe decide just maybe the peak of our mountain got kind of lit up down over here. Then it kind of fell into the shadow. Not all of it is gonna be hit by the lights, right? Not all of it. Bam, just very lightly. Very light little things. With that lightest little pressure, that's when the fun stuff starts to happen. And you get those very neat little breaks, right? We're barely even touching it right now. Just trying to get the smallest little bit of light to come off. Just like that, come up and make our big old mountains. Right? And if you have enough paint on your brush, maybe you could do it all in one go. Bam. Bam, get that whole thing sliding down. All these little shadows around it. Very cool. Right? Come back and decide maybe we want to change the angle of this guy. Maybe he popped out over here. More of that side was lit up, right? All depends on what you want it to look like. Right, but I never like it showing all in a perfectly straight line. So maybe down here, there's a little bit more. And all of a sudden we have this very cool little mountain range starting to grow. Don't need a whole lot of paint on this side. Just a little bit for the mist, because that's gonna be where our tree's gonna sit right there. Right? Big bits coming down. Very cool. Easy way to make a mountain, right? Come back in over here. A little bit more of that light blue color. And then every so often with these very deep dark spots, and you can sneak in a bit of that real deep dark initial color that we made the mountains with, and kind of mix that in different areas, right? And the more that you go over it, say you drop it on, it's a bit too dark, the more you go over it, you can lighten it, right? It doesn't have to remain that dark the entire time. And just like that, cool little details start to happen. They start to happen, guys. all on their own. And you're like, oh, how did you do that mountain? Oh, well, it kind of did it on its own. Didn't really, I don't want to take too much credit. Didn't really do much of it, really. Right? You can always go back in, adjust, change, pick a different color, go over the light, that kind of dark with our little bit of light, make a little shelf back in there, maybe a little bighorn sheep likes to go back there and hang out. Who knows? Who knows? And then you can always go back in and change whatever you don't like, right? It's fantastic. Fantastic. Swipe just the littlest bits over if you can. Again, never in a perfectly straight line though. That always makes it look funny to me. See if we can't get this guy to kind of blend in the littlest bit. Again, you can't have it all be the white paint on top of the white paint. You have to have some areas of blue, some areas of our initial color back there. Can't all be the same. That guy started to slide down this way. Right? Little things start to happen when you start to have a good little play around with it. Maybe if we can get a little bit more of our bright white up here. There we go. Right? Not everything is going to be perfect. It's not all going to be hit by the sun all at the same time. Never all happens perfectly for us, right? We're going to come back in, take our 1-inch or 2-inch brush, big old 2-inch brush. And yes, ladies, this is a big brush, okay? 2 inches is big. We're going to go back, going to swipe it. Look, doesn't even matter what's happening down in our black canvas area, right? I'm following our angles back and forth. Same way, if we came down this way with our knife, we're going up this way with the brush, right? Same thing back in here. If we can keep a little bit of difference, right? Try not to touch the mountain. Oh my goodness, don't touch the mountain. There we go. Little bit of swipes back there. You kind of create a little bit of mist. Very cool. All depends on our brush strokes too. If you pull it at the wrong angle, it's not going to look right. Right? Look at this stuff down here. Literally turn into snow, the base of our mountain. Very cool. I like that little shadow back there. I don't want to cover all of it, but it, not all, there we go. Beauty, look at that. Beauty and the Beast. I don't even really need to put any more color on the brush. There's no undercolor under this canvas. So maybe if we put a little bit of that blue color in there, just a little, just dumping it on, right? Dump it on, and then we're going to work it in, and then we'll throw the white back over the top. Right? I mean, poof, right there, you got a cool little bit of water. You could leave your painting done as water right there. That's what you want. That's what you get, right? You do not have to fully complete the tutorial as long as I am painting for. You don't have to do that, right? You can literally call it done whenever you want. That's very neat, though. Very cool. Very cool little things start to happen. Right? I want my ridge to come out a little bit further. Right, just by dropping that little bit of white paint in there, and as we start to pull out with our brush, it's going to change into this kind of blue, hazy, little bit of snow. Look, just like literally everywhere. It doesn't even matter. Right? Abstract it. Man, doesn't matter what we do at all. Seriously. Seriously, does not matter one single bit. You come back with your 1-inch brush, come back in here. Right, all of a sudden, little swipes, right? Maybe we come back up our little bit of mountain over here that needed to be softened down a little bit, and then hard pressure. You want to slide that white paint into the blue, right? We want it to be covered. Maybe take a little bit more white, come from down here. Sideways pulls though. You want your landscape to make sense. All your little shadows have to make sense in there, right? Very cool, right? The more white paint that we put on the brush, the more little white areas we're gonna see. Now I'm changing every angle, you know, underneath that guy in order to have it be a little bit of a hill, some sort of a something happening, right? A little bit more white paint. Really make it stand out. The more that you go over it, the more it's going to blend with the stuff that's underneath, right? So don't go over it too many times. Don't make it all the same. Gorgeous. Gorgeous. Right, and we had this guy a little bit dark back there. Push a little bit harder, make the snow a little bit whiter, but leaving that blue line. Gotta have little differences in color, different angles. All right, maybe our little horizon came over there, and poof, we got a wicked cool painting. And again, you could stop anytime you want. You don't have to continue. You can call it done, and Paint with Josh will know that you did his tutorial versus anyone else's, right? All right, now we're gonna come in. I wanna do a good sized tree, but not a humongous tree. Okay, so we're gonna fill up just the tips of the bristles. I don't need it to go everywhere. So just a couple pulls, light pressure on the brush, just to fill up the bristles with paint, all the three of my dark colors, right? I don't want it to go all the way up the brush. That side got a little hairy. Why don't we take our knife, we'll go like this, scrape it, just so it's not, there we go, just so it's not too far up the end, right? You can do that easily. Let me save that dark color right here because we're going to use it, let me tell you. Go back over just to kind of flatten out those little bristles. And now the brush isn't so filled with paint. And we can come over here and who knows, let's say right here, right up by our sun. Are you ready? By the sun, right on the brush, just like that. Gorgeous. Oh no. Bam. All you got to do, right? You got to make a decision and you got to go for it. Just like that. We're going to come back with the brush, refill the tips with paint, and come in from an angle, pushing up like this. And we're going to tap, making the smallest little things, right? And then the more that we come down, the more that we push in, just like that. Maybe you skip a little bit, right? And come down, we skip a little branch. Very cool. Leaving little things to show. Now, as I come down over this little bit of our thicker white area back there, if it doesn't come off of my brush easily, then I need to get some more paint, right? Just like that, cool little branch. Maybe down here, just making a little arc, right? Then maybe we'll come down like this, little Z's back and forth. All you gotta do, right? And then you go back with more paint, you fill it up. All we've done is provide a little bit of shadow or undercolor for our tree, right? We'll come back in here and really start to fill out where we want our branches to be. Tapping outwards. Yeah. Don't have to leave an empty space if you don't want. You can fill it in, but don't let it get too crazily big, right? We don't need it to be humongous. No humongo trees, okay? They don't need to be giants. Now, I like having a few little bits that hang off, right? Little fingers, I call them. So I scrape up the paint. I come back in here, it's super textured, right? Every time I smack it, I'm squeezing those little textured areas down. And that's not what we want to do. I want them to be out so they can grab all of my paint, right? Very cool. Just like that. Just like that. Take our 1/8 brush, and maybe on this guy, since the sun's back there, I'll just pull down a little bit. All we need to do is create that little bit of shadow right underneath the tree, right? Because our sunlight is way back there. So we kind of pull it down just like reflections, swipe it over. Nice and easy, all set to go. That's fantastic. Let's highlight this guy and we'll be done. We will be done. And of course, Josh doesn't have any highlight paint out on his palette. So I'm sorry for all the people on TikTok. Man, that's looking excellent in the screen though, let me tell you. All right, now, in order to highlight, I'm gonna use Bob Ross Liquid White. We're gonna take that out, get it on our knife, our clean knife, hopefully. If we have a clean utensil anywhere, people. Now, I have an old nasty lid to one of these liquid white jars I call my Petri dish, right? Because it literally looks like something could be growing in there. That's what I think anyway. So I'm gonna go into my new, it's kind of hard to show you without having like multiple hands. Why don't we do it up here? We'll go into the white, just kind of scoop up a little bit. Look at how runny it is, right? It's very much like milk or eggnog, right? A little bit thick, but I wouldn't want to drink it. We're gonna come in, just tap a little bit into our Petri dish so we don't have too much. I'm not gonna dip my whole brush in here, right? That's gonna be way too much on the brush and it's not gonna create the right kind of shape. Now, that's, oh, covering up Bob's little face. That's all we need for the Bob Ross Liquid White. It's the same stuff that we covered the top of our canvas with initially, right? Same exact stuff. So we're gonna come over here and we're gonna wipe this guy off. Get in your guys' way. Now I'm gonna grab a much smaller brush than the brush that we actually made the tree with, right? Different size brushes do different things as far as making branches, in my opinion. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back into this little, I don't wanna keep this up here to fall down and get on my floor. I'm gonna go back into my liquid white, but I'm not gonna dip the whole brush in, right? I'm just gonna dip the top, the very end. I don't want it to climb so far up the branches, right? Up the bristles. Now we're gonna mix it in with that white oil paint that has our blue with it, and it's going to start to change into this kind of bluey, snowy, shadowy, highlighty color. Very cool. All right, now if it gets too blue, go back in, a little bit more liquid white just on the end again, right? It's gonna start to lighten it up. And I like to leave it marbled, just like that, right? So it's not fully blue, there's a little bit of white, there's a little bit of blue with it. And that way we can fill in our highlights with our white and then use the rest of it for our shadows, okay? Now, it's kind of hard to show you from each side, but we're gonna come in like this and really only stay on the right side of our tree. Maybe we'll touch the top, dead on in the center, so we get this bright, snowy, frozen bit to it. And then over here, we're gonna start tapping up. So we're gonna take our brush, woo, it's gorgeous. It's just like this, I'm gonna come in and start to tap, right? Try to do it way out here so you guys can see it. Even though the painting might not do well, at least you guys will be able to see it, right? There we go, a little bit on the end, just kind of tapping up, using the corner, letting it grow the more we go down, right? Just kind of tapping from the corner though. Tap, 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 kind of let it grow out. And in areas where we get a hard line, a straight line like that you don't like, you can go back and cover over that. So forget it for right now, come back in, start tapping at it, right? Pushing up, little things from the corner. Now I'm starting to get a lot of dark color on this corner that we've been using. So let's flip it over, we'll use the other corner. And it's gonna come out very bright. And again, we're gonna come down in our little Z pattern, just like that, just lighting up little different things. Now over here, maybe we can throw just a couple, right? Because it's not gonna be so shadowy that we won't be able to see the other end of the tree. So let's put a couple over there, a couple over here, a couple little light areas down in here. And the more that we push, the bigger our branches are gonna become, right? And just like that, you don't even need to do the bottom, you really don't. Boom, leave it. Leave that little area growing up out of the snow too. That looks really cool. I like that. Very neat. Okay, let's go wash this guy off. Let's see if there's any places that need a little bit of, just a little bit of light to them. I said we could go back and fix that guy. Now that we have the dark color on our brush from touching all the rest of our tree down here, you can come up underneath, just throw a little bit of shadow up underneath that branch. Just puts it back where it's supposed to be, right? Back where it's supposed to be. Very cool. The more little things you do, you might do one time that you don't like. So don't do too many. Try to cover over certain bits. That's a little bit too much. So just go back over it, just maybe 1 or 2 taps, and all of a sudden you got this gorgeous little snowy, high-lit tree. Fantastic. Fantastic. All right, let's see if we can do a little trick. Oh, they're gonna turn out black, so either way, we'll come back in here like you never even saw it. Don't want to pull too far on either side, otherwise it'll look like your shadow is, you know, the light's over here, it's pushing your shadow this way. And if anything, our shadow would go back here. For all the haters and the naysayers, I think our shadow would head back that way if it were really there, based on our light. Very cool. Very cool. All right. Let's just get a little bit more white just in different areas as we come down, right? The more and more we go over it, the more it's going to blend, but the more little ridges you leave up here in the front just by having too much paint on the brush. Look at that. I've globbed it up, just like we do on the end of our palette knife, right? We glob it up. But in this instance, I just want to leave like a stripe, and obviously not one that big. We'll have to go over that. But if we leave little detailed breaking ridges in our snow in the front, and not so terribly crazy or noticeable that we can even see, but just like that, right? A couple little swipes as the snow starts to blow and it stacks on top of itself. No swipes back here because this is so far away you can't tell. You know it's still snow back there, but you can't tell what it is. These guys, right down into our foreground, following those angles. I like to leave my corners a little bit darker than the rest, and just like that, we got a wicked cool painting. Wicked cool painting. So, we're gonna put our signature in it now. We're gonna do going to our odorless mineral spirits, which is our paint thinner, right? It's, I just say paint thinner because it's easier than saying odorless mineral spirits every time. We should do our OMS. We'll go into our OMS, right? Our odorless mineral spirits, put it into our pile of dark paint, and that makes it very runny, like ink. Right now, I'll show you a cool trick. If you don't have one of these, get one. It's a yardstick or a meter-long stick, depending on where you are in the world. You can get these at any hardware store. They're like $2. And as long as you have a little bit of room in between your canvas and your hand or your brush or whatever, then you can do many, many, many things. And I like to use it for sharp little details. Little things where when I've got the painting finished and it's the best painting I've ever painted before in my life, and I go up here like this and I'm shaking like a leaf when I'm trying to do the last little detail, right? Or am I the only one that gets nervous at the end when all the details have been done, right? So we're gonna come up here, make my little family of birds. These birds indicate they represent myself, my wife, and my daughter, and they go into every single painting that we do. I always encourage you guys to add your families, either by using these birds or by the number of birds that you use in there. There's a lot of my fans like Glenn, who paints Walter into every one of his scenes, which is his little, I think it's a crane. He lives out in Florida, and he sees this crane all the time, I guess, and gave him a name, and he puts him into every one of his paintings. I think it's really cool. So yeah, myself, my wife, my daughter, they go into every single painting that Paint with Josh puts out. And we might as well use that same, go back into our OMS, right? Our odorless mineral spirits, OMS, our ohms. That's not how you say ohms. Ohms has an H in it. Come on, Josh. Go into that dark color right here. And then we're gonna come back and down into the dark side, right? And just very small, we'll put in the old Josh Hancock and call this one done. So I can't wait to see your versions of this painting. TikTok, don't go anywhere because we're not done. We have to do bloopers still, okay? So just telling the tutorial guys. All right, so I can't wait to see your version of this painting, and I can't wait for you to send it in. Send them into facebook.com/paintwithjosh via messenger, or post them in the comments, post them in the groups, tag @paintwithjosh, and that way I'll be able to see them. So until we see you on the next time, take care, have the rest of a good day, and pow! Get them out of here. I love that ending. Okay, now we have to do the intro, right? So the intro to my videos is a little bit further back. It doesn't really matter to you TikTok guys. You're not gonna really see me too much. But yeah, now we'll do the beginning of the video. And if you've never seen one of my videos, one of my tutorials anyway, hang on, I'm sure London would appear to tell me to do this because I could feel it. If you've never seen one of my videos before, it starts out with a completed painting and I go, hey, welcome to Paint with Josh. We're gonna do this painting and blah, 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 right? So I have to film that at some point. It doesn't just happen on its own. So we're about to do it right now. Hang on. Get my dry mouth, Okay, let's do it. Hi, welcome back to Paint with Josh. Today we did a gorgeous 16 by 20 inch sunset with a soft little moon. Called it a moon. Called it a moon. It's not a moon. That's no moon. All right, let's try this again. Try not to get paint all over myself. Hey guys, welcome back to Paint with Josh. Why do I say guys all the time? There could be multiple guys, but it's mostly women, and it's probably just you sitting alone watching me by yourself, right? So let's change that.